Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Welcome back, Hawkeye fans, to Punting is Winning, the All-Iowa podcast. We're your hosts, Keith and JD. We will get the names right this time. I won't have them switched from like I did last week.
I think by now people know who we are.
Yeah, I would say, unless you're new to the channel. But so yeah, finally got the first week in the books. Let's cover the question of the week last week first, which we asked: when was the last time Iowa lost a season opening game?
Minus the 2020 season.
Minus the 2020 season, yeah, that was
right.
the COVID year. That a lot of that's really kind of strange anyway, so I don't really count those as when you jump right into a Big Ten schedule, and that's a little different. But the last time it happened, and we did have somebody answer it, I think Dean from Talking Iowa Hawkeye Sports got the answer correct. It was 2013 at home against Northern Illinois, and Iowa lost that game 30-27. And if I remember right, 2013 we ended up 4-8 that year. I think it was the last losing year that Kirk Ferentz had.
Yeah.
So you had to go back ways.
They bounced back to 14 and 15 years. 15 years especially was very good.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, they just found a
probably
quarterback.
a young team.
Yep. So that's a good transition into the first game yesterday against Illinois State. Kind of went how we expected it.
Yeah,
we talked about it last week.
Yeah, I think we were really close on how we thought this was going to go. I think we both said probably going to have a lot of issues in the first several drives. Not going to do much. I said maybe we are up 6-0 at the first quarter, but we were up 3-0. And I thought maybe 13-0 at the half. We were up 6-0 at the half. So I mean, we weren't too far off for the most part.
The thing I look at is you've got the block in the back that was a touchdown called back. If Jamari Harris keeps his feet, that's a pick six.
Right. Yeah, there were some penalties that caused drives to stall.
Yeah.
The one that bothered me the most is the one that Luke Lachey was running down the line and he turned too soon, or he really, and I had seen this earlier. I think Jacob Gill actually had done it earlier, where he was running down the line and it looked like a banana. He just kind of circled around like he was headed towards the line of scrimmage before the ball was snapped. And I thought to myself, oh, there's no call there. There should have been a call there. And then I saw it later when Lachey did it, that they did call it. And it was that scramble that I think it was McNamara ran for about 25 yards and then turned around and had the penalty for that. And I thought, you're a upperclassman, you should know better than to do that. And I even yelled at the TV a few times about that deal. And because I had seen it earlier and I thought that we were lucky to not get called, and then it got called in a kind of a rough time to get it called, but it's okay. They'll bounce back they'll learn from that.
Yeah. I thought the worst call was the holding on Jay Higgins. That was terrible. And that cost him a turnover too.
Yeah,
that cost him field position. So that's more potential points on the board.
Yeah.
I looked at it as Iowa should probably been up at least 20-0 at halftime.
Yeah. If you watch that on that penalty, for whatever reason, I don't know, the tight end that they called the hold, he actually reached out and grabbed Jay Higgins. And I don't know what the referee was watching, or if he just looked saw the reaction of the player and just assumed that it was the Iowa guy holding, and it wasn't. It was the opposite. And he got called. I don't know, these referees, you'd think that they would make a call on something they actually see instead of something they think they see.
Well, you think of basketball, how many anticipation fouls do you get called in a game? That's just terrible.
Right.
But yeah, I thought that was one that cost potential points, 3 points possibly, whatever. That was a recovery at the 23 or 24 yard line that ended up being pushed up to the 42, I think. So, but yeah, I think we talked about it, and I remember texting you earlier in the game that I made my bold predictions that we'd have a punt return and a pick for a 6, and I almost had those in the first quarter.
Yeah. That's close.
So, but it's like I said, it played out pretty much the way we expected it to. Struggle the first few drives. Got to get your feet underneath. You got to get the jitters out. You got to shake the rust off. Figure out what they're doing. They were bringing a blitz on pretty much every play, coming off the edge. They knew,
stacking the box.
Based on what they've seen on film, that if that backside defender is always unblocked in that zone blocking scheme, and if he can be quick through that line and he can come off that as a corner or a safety who's a little quicker than an end, he's going to run down a play from behind before it can develop. And I think I don't know that there was a whole lot of adjustments at halftime either. It looked more like they just started to execute better.
Yeah.
They kind of started to get their feet underneath them and figure things out. And I think once they got that first touchdown on the board, the confidence swelled at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You saw Cade was 13 of 14 in the second half.
Yeah, he had a much better second half than the first half. It was a tale of two halves for him.
Yeah.
And not that he did terrible the first half. There was some drop passes. I think the one in the end zone could have been caught. The one on the sidelines, Kamari Moulton got kind of discombobulated a little bit. It wouldn't have gained in much yards, but at least it wouldn't have been an incomplete pass. He dropped one. But I'm not making excuses. There were some pretty poor passes too.
Yeah.
There were some throws behind potential receivers.
Yeah, the one to Vanderzee that would have been a first down was behind him. The one that was down there too, I think I don't remember if it was Lachey or Stringa on that tight end seam pass that was a little late. I guess I don't. When did they take out face guarding? You have to make a play on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the situation, but I never knew the penalty of if the guy goes out of bounds,
right?
It's an automatic penalty. I thought if he went out of the bounds, came back in, was the first to touch it,
right,
to down it, or the first one to tackle a guy or something, then it's a penalty. But if he just, and it didn't look like he ran out on his own. It looked like he was kind of forced out and maybe just didn't quite get in as fast. But what he did not affect the play whatsoever.
Not at all.
So I was like, why would you call that? That just doesn't even make sense.
Well, he'll learn from that too. It's not something that will probably get called again the rest of the season. Even if it happens, it probably won't get called again. They just, I don't know if they want to just impress their bosses or if they want to set a tone for the season or what. But, that one's just kind of one of them. You kind of went, whatever.
It had a bit of a game where it wasn't a 40-0 type of game, then maybe you'd throw a little bit more of a fit about it. But it is what it is. And going back to the theme of it's kind of what we expected. Obviously the defense was what we expected.
Yeah.
Just flat
that defense was so dominant.
How dominant were they?
They were so dominant that they did not allow Illinois State past the Iowa 38-yard line all game. And that happened about under 2 minutes left to go in the third on a jump ball pass that I think John Nestor and the opponent went up, and the opponent came down with it and got down to, I think, the Iowa 44, and then they ran a couple of running plays, got down to the 38, and they went for fourth and didn't get it and turned the ball over then. But that's as close as they got. They didn't get in the red zone at any point. They didn't even get close to scoring a touchdown or a field goal at any point. Kind of wonder how many FBS or FCS schools this last weekend or even week 0 didn't allow their opponent past the 38-yard line. It'd be interesting to know, and I know that would take a lot of looking.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that I really care that much to look for it, but it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. I would say probably the one to think about would be like
Illinois.
I was thinking Tennessee. Tennessee beat their FCS opponent 63-0.
Yeah, and Illinois
Alabama won 56-0.
Yeah.
Illinois was 49-0. Purdue was 49-0.
Yeah,
and that was
a dominant fashion there too. Hudson Card was 25 at 26,
24, 25, 25. Yeah, so 94%.
That's
tied a college record of the highest completion percentage of anybody over 20 attempts. Yeah.
Just real quick, while we were on the subject, was there anything this weekend that surprised you? All the games being played?
Oregon struggling with Idaho. I thought
Yes.
was surprising.
I did watch some of that game.
I did not. I was in the truck on my way home, but I did have an app that I listened to some of Washington and Weber State.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of what I expected. I mean, it's workmanlike effort to win that game. I thought Michigan struggling against Fresno was a bit surprising.
UCLA and Hawaii. I watched some of that. UCLA had to come back
that was
to win that
16
game.
to 13. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's one of the games that I actually had them winning.
Yeah,
So.
I did too, but it was not as easy. It was very difficult. In fact, Hawaii played well.
NC State struggling
Mm-hmm.
against their lower division opponent. Gosh, there's quite a few of them that actually kind of surprised me. Iowa State struggling against North Dakota.
Gave up a lot of rushing yards.
Yeah, and I remember I listed a little bit of that on the way on my drive as well, and I remember they picked a pass off in the end zone that was in the first half. I think it was still like 7-0 at the time, and they missed a field goal. So there's potentially 13 points that they would have had on the board total, and 21 to 13 is a little bit different than 21 to 3.
Well, we'll get into Iowa State in a little bit.
Plus, Iowa State did lose their one of their best defensive players.
Yeah, didn't hear a injury report on him. I heard it was just one of them day-to-day type of things, but he may be back for Iowa. Now, is he gone? Do you know that?
I have not heard. I heard it sounded like it was pretty serious. But
okay. I know that they
wrong.
carted him off, or at least out of the field or off the field.
Typically,
maybe.
If they cart you off, you're not going to be day-to-day.
Yeah, it might be. I know it was a lower leg injury, but I'm not sure if it was an ankle or if it was something else.
Yeah, I wasn't overly impressed.
But no, I wasn't either. The first two plays, I was like, oh boy. But then after that, they just kind of settled in. And I don't think North Dakota is too bad a team, but are they South Dakota State? Probably not.
Or North Dakota State.
Or even North Dakota State.
Yeah. Are they even as good as Illinois State?
I think
that's to be seen.
Illinois State. We'll see.
State's
they'll probably play each other at some point.
Illinois State might not be a top 25 team anymore with all the injuries they had yesterday.
Yeah. That one play, that running back got hurt on the very first play. He carried the ball. That Mason King carried the ball one time and got hurt, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah, it is. I'd kind of like to see what Iowa could do against somebody that was a quality running back.
Yeah, transfer from Northern Illinois, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So I think basically, like I said, it was what we expected. We kind of called it out the week before when we kind of gave our predictions on what we thought was going to happen. Struggle early, pull away late, turn it on, figure it out, shake the rust off. 492 yards offense.
Any surprises?
492 yards offense.
Well, yeah, 40 points.
Yeah.
How about Reese Vanderzee?
Yeah, I was surprised, but I listened to sound off, and I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit on anointing him the next second coming. Let the kid get his feet settled in. One game does not make a season. But I do see shades of Ed Hinkle.
Yeah. But with height.
Not in his playing style, but how his career could progress.
He's got good hands. He runs good routes. Yeah. He's got a lot of development yet to get. I mean, he's got a lot of natural talent, obviously.
Very good size.
Yeah, the 6'4",
207.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, plus good speed. That's the other thing.
I loved how he went up and kind of took that ball away in that sea of hands type of deal, or everybody was right there and he just kind of reached up and.
Well, and I had just texted you about 10, 15 minutes before that and said, boy, that corner fade to him would be a great play to run with his size.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't quite the corner fade. It was off the back foot desperation throw, I think, more than anything.
It was kind of an ill-advised throw, but it actually worked out. Just kind of like that first half pass to Lachey that hit the corner in the back. when they were falling, and McNamara threw off his back foot and didn't get a lot on it.
Yeah.
And he's lucky that didn't get intercepted.
I don't think he threw it off somebody's back. I think he threw it off Connor Colby's helmet.
Oh, no, that was a different play.
Oh, was that a different one?
That was a different one. The one I'm talking about was in the first half going to the south end zone. And it was early in the first, or it was like a second drive where he threw the ball, and they were kind of falling back, and it hit the guy in the back. And
that's the one I said that I didn't know what face guarding. That's the play. Yeah.
Yeah. And the one where he hit Connor Colby in the back of the helmet, and the ball went straight up in the air, and luckily that didn't get picked too.
Yeah.
But no, luckily, three takeaways and no giveaways, so that's good. That's
should have had 4 takeaways.
That. Last year if we'd had Deacon in there, it'd have been 3 giveaways, 3 takeaways, because he would have fumbled about every time he got the ball.
But hey,
I don't want to say that. I shouldn't say that.
Big Deke got a touchdown last night.
We'll give the kid
he had a rushing touchdown last night, no less.
Well,
I think they got beat 38-7, but hey.
Just be wondering how many times he put the ball in the turf.
I don't.
An interception.
I think I was thinking he had 2 picks at least. I can't remember. That might be getting, because I know Peters had 2 picks and a touchdown.
Yeah, I don't know why we're even talking about these two.
Yeah, they're both in Utah now. One at State and the other at Tech.
They're almost far enough away that we don't have to worry about them.
Yeah, I'd like to see them do well.
But
just because. So
I'm not.
Anyway, let's put the game yesterday in the rearview mirror. Let's look forward a little bit.
I did want to say real quick, I thought Reese Dakin did pretty well. He kicked 5 times for 196 yards at 39.2 average, and he put some inside the 20, a couple. I thought he did very well for his very first game, punting.
Yeah, first punt wasn't too spectacular, but he picked it up after that. Yeah. I think it was like you said, it's that first time out there under live duress, and
might have been nerves a little too.
Yeah.
But he didn't see any real, what I would call real pressure either, like a 10 coming at him type of thing. He'll experience that at some point coming up. We'll see how he handles it. I thought the kicking game was fine. Kickoffs and extra points, field goals, all solid. None of those that you kind of squeaked in. You kind of went, oof, that was close, and everything was straight down the middle. And
he got a strong leg.
No complaints when it comes to kicking at this point.
You mentioned the 3 turnovers. I would almost say there was 4 because of that punt that was almost blocked and he had to take off running. Yeah, that's basically that's a turnover on downs. It's
right.
And then the one that the holding call that was phantom, that was a turnover taken away too. So I mean they did. Their emphasis was on getting turnovers, and I think they accomplished that yesterday. So, but like I said, let's put this one in the rear view and let's look forward to next week. It's officially, I guess, hate week. Starts today. It's the week that I hate the most because I hate this game. It's to me it is the idiots come out of the woodwork for this game. Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm talking about opposing fan bases more than anything, where they think they're, I know it sounds arrogant to say it, but they are little brother. Yeah. They are, just look at your history. And you are doing everything in your power to be like Iowa. I mean, you put out a little hype video with a black and white bus playing Back in Black. Come on now. I mean, that's envy.
Yeah.
It's the sincerest form of flattery, I guess. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But anyway, we talked a little bit about them against North Dakota. Wasn't overly impressed. But again, we've seen that script play out before where they look like crap in the first week. We look like world beaters in the first week, and in the second week, it's completely reversed. So I don't want to go too much off of that. Both playing FCS teams, probably of around equal caliber. Um, like you said, I think Iowa State gave up a lot of yards on the ground, which
just shy of 200.
If they're maybe yesterday showed them that they can't stack the box as easily.
Well,
that's the one thing I'm hoping.
They run a 3-3-5 defense. So what they tend to want to do is they'll run 3 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, and they'll run 5 defensive backs. Now what they will do is they'll run like a Leo or a Cash type situation where one of those guys can drop down out of like safety and can drop down and be a linebacker, or they can substitute into a bigger package if it's like a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, where it's a possibility of there's going to be a pretty good possibility it's going to be run. So they can do a bunch of different things. So and it may look a little different at the onset of the play, but at the end it's going to be essentially the same thing as what Iowa runs, like a 4-3.
Or what
4-3-4
Illinois State ran yesterday, 3-4.
Yeah. So I think that's probably why they gave up as many yards to North Dakota as they did, was that they got up on North Dakota and I kind of expected them to start throwing the ball a little bit more than they did. And I think that's why they left the 5 defensive backs in and basically left it 3-3. So I don't think even though they're going to run a 3-3-5 still against Iowa, it's going to look different. They're going to bring in a bigger safety, or to be basically that 4th linebacker essentially.
Yeah, that 5th defensive back, that safety, is going to be playing closer to the line of scrimmage.
Right.
And it more than likely it's going to be a similar game plan to what Illinois State did, where they had the safety or the slot corner crashing on the backside of the play every time. And we've seen it before where in the zone blocking scheme, that backside defender is usually unblocked. And if you put a fast enough guy, he can run down the back before he can make his cut. If you don't get there before the cut, then you're lost in the wash.
Well, I was going to have to adjust to that because they could run if that is going to be a situation where Iowa State runs that and does that like Illinois State did, and that opens them up to reverses. That opens them up to play action. Misdirection where the tight end comes across. They run a play and then turn around and throw it back because he's trying to follow it. There's a lot of different adjustments that Iowa can make if they continue to do that. And
they can also put that tight end that's on the strong side of the formation in basically in a crackback position where he's running back to hit that backside, keep that from going. You're losing one blocker on the front, but you're probably in a better position to make yards to get that, you get that little opening where he can get through, as opposed to getting caught from behind before he can get through the opening. That's where I was a little frustrated yesterday, but I think, the game plan was very vanilla. Again, I don't see that they, I didn't see them say, oh, well, we got to open up the playbook in the second half. We got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this. It just seemed like they just executed better. And, I don't know if it was just better execution, understanding the playbook better, getting the rush shaken off, or wearing down the defense a little bit.
I think I was going to say that they wore them down pretty good. But that's a sign of a good team to do that. Yeah. I mean, not every team's going to wear down the opposing team. I mean, I realize that Illinois State was on defense for a lot of the game. I think Iowa had a higher time of possession. So, when you got the defense on there and then you start losing a few guys to injury, and then you got to bring your second and third team in, and that FCS is not going to have the talent level in their second and third string that Iowa would have in their second and third string. So, all of these things kind of combine like a snowball effect. You get tired, you lose a couple guys to injury, you bring in guys that probably have not played at this level before, or even have played at all. Maybe some redshirt guys that didn't play at all last year, and you're expecting them to be in the 2 deeps, and they're out there playing for the first time, and they're making mistakes, and they're not following what they're supposed to be doing because they're in the heat of the battle, and sometimes you get out of position when you don't when you've been taught not to. It's just there's a lot of little things, and Iowa even had some issues where they were caught out of position a couple
Yeah.
of times. So I mean, first game, there's a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of things to fix, and Iowa has a lot of things to fix too. Especially cleaning up these penalties. Those
Yeah.
penalties hurt Iowa more than anything yesterday. And one of the things I thought was kind of nice. Was there one false start penalty? And it was on Jacob Gill?
Yes, on Jacob Gill. Right after he
back to
had
back.
the holding.
Yeah. He had 2 penalties right back to back. So, that's for the first game, that's pretty good. There's a lot of teams. And I think having that inner helmet connection to the offensive line or offensive coordinator is going to solve a bunch of that, because you're not going to be late getting the play in. You're not going to be rushing into, because you got a late play and you're rushing to the front to the line of scrimmage, and then you're looking at your reads, and then all of a sudden, bing, no more time. You either delay a game or it's somebody jumps quick because they know that you got to run.
Yeah. I did hear that the mic cuts off in the helmet at 15 seconds left on the play clock.
Oh, really?
And Tim Lester said that he still evaluates the play even after that cuts off, and they will use sideline signals to readjust.
Well,
so
yeah, maybe he needs to some degree allow a little bit of freedom for Cade McNamara, who is a senior, a grad senior, to if something doesn't come across, to call the play on his own and see what happens.
Well, and I think part of it, I know he said put the game in the rear view, but I think part of it was they started to get a rhythm when they hit that 2-minute offense. And they went a little more up tempo. And, I know that's not Kirk's MO to go up tempo, but think about this. The 2 games that you've seen a quarterback really, really thrive. Think about 2014 against Pitt, when Vandenberg had to go 2-minute offense in the last quarter and just humming down the field. And then they got the rhythm yesterday when they started going to that 2-minute little bit quicker pace. Maybe you do try to pick up the pace just a little bit. You mix it up a little bit. You don't necessarily huddle and waste all your, I get the idea of you want to use as much of the play clock. I mean, I looked it up. Iowa had almost a 10-minute advantage on time of possession. And that's good. You want that. Yeah. But if going a little up tempo from time to time gets you into a better rhythm, that's worth it. It's a fair trade-off to me. If you're struggling and you're just not getting things going and that helps you jumpstart it, that's a fair trade-off. So, but yeah, I don't even know what else to say other than, this. We got this game coming up that I'm not sure how to look at it at this point.
Yeah, I don't either. We'll make our predictions and bold predictions at the end. But let's do a quick preview of who we got coming up.
Go for it.
Iowa State, based out of Ames, Iowa, student population of almost just shy of 30,000. They are in the Big 12, for those that don't know this. Their mascot is Cy. They finished the 2023 season at 7-6.
And they got
6-3 in the conference. And they what?
They have great water in Ames.
Well, I wouldn't know. They lost the Liberty Bowl to Memphis 36-26. Their head coach, Matt Campbell's in his 9th season. He is overall 54-48 at Iowa State, 38-34 in the conference at Iowa State. They return 13 seniors, 21 juniors, 33 sophomores, and bring in 62 redshirt freshmen and freshmen.
And what is he, 1-7 against Iowa?
And the only win was 2 years ago at Iowa City, wasn't it? With Hunter Deckers. Iowa just had so poor of an offense, they couldn't do anything.
Had a touchdown that didn't get allowed when.
Yeah, there was a fumble at the goal line, but he actually scored.
Yeah.
They do have some transfers, but I'm not really mentioning their names. There's a Wisconsin transfer that plays center for them. The rest of the guys are just bit players. They do have a running back that didn't play yesterday. They have a defensive end from the University of Louisiana Monroe that did play some yesterday. In 2023, they averaged 26.2 points per game while allowing 22.7. They averaged 119.9 yards rushing, so you could just say 120. They averaged 4.1 yards per rush. They did allow 134.2, but only allowed 3.8 yards per rush. So I would say that the opponent rushed the ball a lot more often than Iowa State did. So Iowa State does throw the ball quite frequently. That's probably why. Passing, they averaged 245 yards a game while allowing 228.9. And in 2023, they rushed for 16 TDs and passed for 23. Their quarterback, number one quarterback, is Rocco Becht. He was the Big 12 Offensive Freshman of the Year in 2023. He's backed up. Yesterday, he was backed up by Connor Mobley. He came in second. The other guy was actually listed on the 2 deep, but didn't play. The running back is a sophomore named Abu Sama out of Southeast Polk. Had a pretty good game against Kansas State in the snow last year, 200 and some yards. So they had a good game. He had a total last year of 84 rushes for 614 yards. Their number 2 running back is Carson Hansen. He's a sophomore. He had 22 rushes for 67 yards all of last year. They have some pretty good wide receivers. This is something Iowa is going to need to be very cognizant of. There's two wide receivers that seem to get most of the balls thrown to them. It's Jalen Higgins. Last year had 53 receptions for 983 yards. And he had 8 receptions for 95 against Iowa and a touchdown. So that's something to look for. Especially Iowa would have to watch them on defense for sure. The other guy is Jalen Knoll. He's also a senior. He's 66 receptions, 820 yards. He had 8 receptions for 50 yards against Iowa last year. No touchdowns. And then they got a redshirt freshman named Benji. I don't know. Ngoyi. Najoy? Nagoy? Yeah, Nagoy. Okay, Nagoy probably is right. He had 1 reception last year as a freshman for 46 yards. They got a decent tight end, pretty good tight end. He's probably not necessarily in Iowa's class for tight end, but he's pretty good. They do all right with him. Ben Bramer's a sophomore. He had 28 receptions for 352 yards. He had 2 receptions for 23 against Iowa last year. And then they have another guy named Gabe Burkle. He's a sophomore, 2 receptions, 9 yards last year. Pretty good sized offensive line. Left tackle, Travis Neal, 6'6", 330. Left guard, Dylan Barrett. That's the one from Wisconsin transfer. He is 6'5", 330. Center is Gerard Hufford. He's a senior at 6'5", 320. Right guard, Brendan Black, sophomore, 6'4", 320. Right tackle, Tyler Miller. He's a senior. And he's 6'9", 330. Their punter is Tyler Perkins. He's 61 punts last year for 2,703 yards. Had a 44.3 yard per kick with a long of 70. So that's the offensive side and the punter. They score a lot of points. I think they like the big play offense. I noticed yesterday, I watched a little bit of the game. The first 2 plays were a 50-some yard pass, 53-yard pass, and then a 20-something, 22-yard pass, and 2 consecutive plays for a touchdown. So, they like to strike quick. That's something Iowa maybe need to be cognizant of, is that they want to set the tone early. They did that yesterday. I don't know that 53-yard pass would have been completed had they thrown that against Iowa. I think Iowa is going to expect something similar to that, so they'll be more apt to look for it. They run a 3-3-5 defense. We talked about that earlier. They've got some good linebackers. Will McLaughlin is a junior, 6'4", 240, 46 tackles, 7 for loss. He had 1 sack and 2 picks and a fumble recovery. Caleb Bacon, who may not play, got hurt yesterday. He will have to be we have a look at maybe getting a different player for him. I didn't look at the backup for him. Anyway, he's 6 if he does play. 6'4", 245, 60 tackles, 6.5 for loss, 3 sacks, and a forced fumble. Cooper Ebel, sophomore, 6'4", 240, played 8 games, had 3 tackles. Transfer Kennard Leonard Jr. He's from Louisiana Monroe. Last year at Louisiana Monroe, he had 60 tackles, 14.5 for loss, and 5.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and he blocked a kick. So he's got, of course, he's not in the Big 12. He was not in the Big 10. So, take that for what it's worth. In their back end, their cornerback, Darian Porter Jr., 10 tackles, 3 pass breakups, and a block punt. Jontez Williams is the other cornerback. He's a sophomore, 6 tackles, 3 pass breakups. He did play quite a bit yesterday. He had a pass interference on him. I know that. I don't know. They're going to use 2 safeties. Bo Freeler, he's a senior, 107 tackles, 4 for loss, 1 sack, and 3 picks. I think he's kind of like their leader of their defense. Malik Verdun Jr., 47 tackles, half a tackle for loss, and 2 picks. And then they have another safety, Jeremiah Cooper, who's a junior, 45 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 5 picks. They also gave up a 23-play drive yesterday. Have you ever heard of that before? I had never even heard of that before.
And it ended up in a pick, I think.
No, it ended up in a field goal.
Oh, is that the one? Okay.
Yeah.
I know they gave a pick off in the end zone on a long.
That was like a 16-play drive.
Well. Yeah.
So, now, defensive line, I'm just going to name off 3 guys, the 3 starting defensive linemen. Tyler Anejim. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. 42 tackles, 6.5 for loss, and 2 sacks. Dominique Orange, also a junior, 16 tackles, 2 for loss. And J.R. Singleton, he's a senior, 22 tackles, 3.5 sacks. And their place kicker is Kyle Conradi. He kicked 3 extra points yesterday and had no other stats. So he didn't play last year at all. So he has not tried to attempt a field goal at this point. So far in 2024, they won 21-3 over North Dakota. They gave up 198 yards rushing, while only gaining 90 on the ground.
That's not a winning formula. Not against a non-FCS team.
Right. Well, see, I'm sure they did just like Iowa did. They held back. Didn't show everything that they had. I'm not sure that they needed to. 21-3, I'm not sure they were really ever. And I know that North Dakota had a couple of long drives that resulted one in 3 points and one in no points.
Yeah, and I had one picked off in the end zone. They missed a field goal, so potentially 13 points. I
don't know if that is an accurate representation of Iowa State yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't, they're just like Iowa first game, working the kinks out. They had a couple of nice plays early. They seem to throw the ball quite a bit, so that's something that Iowa needs to be cognizant of. They're going to throw the ball quite a bit, although they do have a very serviceable running back named Abu Sama. He's good. He's not great. He's not like what they've had in the past with like Breece Hall and David Montgomery that are, threat to go every time, although Abu Sama's got decent speed. He could go. Just if Iowa plays their solid defense like they've been playing, like they played yesterday, I don't think they're going to get hurt rushing the ball. I think where they're going to get hurt is on the back end. I think you're going to see TJ Hall get tested quite a bit on Saturday. I think they're going to put Jalen Noel or Jaden Higgins on him pretty much all game. And it's going to be, you're going to have somebody cheat over there. Now, I don't know if that's going to be Sebastian Castro or someone.
Xavier Wampa or something.
Or Quinn Schulte. Somebody's going to have to cheat to the side to help him out, I think. That's unfortunate, but you've got 2 really solid linebackers that are going to be able to cover their ground and really help you out that way. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a game that Iowa's not going to see this kind of offense. Maybe not all year. I wouldn't say it. Maybe Ohio State is going to be that dynamic, especially on the wide receiver ports, the positions. That's where I see Iowa State really having an advantage is wide receiver. But Iowa has the best defense of the two for sure.
Oh yeah.
But so it's like their strength against our strength. So, it's hard to say how this is going to go.
It's not as if Iowa doesn't know what's going to happen, what's coming anyway. It's
Right.
not like this is a team they've not played in 10 years and it's brand new
Right.
coaching staff, anything like. It's still Iowa State. You know what they're going to run. You know what they're going to bring. And, we're at home. That's advantage Iowa. I think Iowa's defense is better than Iowa State's offense. That's the advantage. Based on what I saw yesterday, Iowa can run the ball a little bit better. That'll open up play action. That could open up some passing lanes. I just don't. This is a game that Iowa shouldn't lose, in my opinion, based on what I've seen.
Yeah, I definitely am not going to predict a shutout. That's for sure. I don't think Iowa will shut Iowa State out. I don't even think. I think Iowa State scores at least 14. That would read that Iowa would have to score, 15 or more to win, obviously.
18-17, maybe we see that again.
Maybe 18-17. That was but they played that game already, didn't they? 18-17.
Yeah, that was the one that was delayed from weather, and the idiot students ran out on the field and tried to tear it up, and
Now I'm thinking probably going to be, and here's my prediction for the game. I'll just get it out of the way now. I think Iowa wins 24-17.
I was going to go Iowa 23-10.
No, I hope so. I hope you're right. I hope we're both right. Either way, as long as Iowa comes away with the win, I don't care how it.
I would be more than happy to have. I'd be more than happy to have a 38-3 like we had a few years back in Iowa City.
I just don't. The only way I would see that happening maybe is if Iowa was to somehow or another put Rocco back out. In other words, if they would blindside sack him and knock his, bring his bell or something, and he's not going to be able to go. And then I don't know what they've got. They've got a freshman and a redshirt freshman, I think, as their backup quarterbacks. Then maybe. But this kid's a pretty good player. I mean, I've watched him a little bit.
2018, when Iowa played Iowa State, Iowa beat them 38-3. It's at the Matt Vandenberg game, and Nate Stanley. We could be looking at a situation where Iowa's a lot better than we think they are, and Iowa State's not as good as we think they are, or as good as they think they are, or vice versa. I just don't. I don't know. It's too early in the season to know. You get this game about 5 or 6 games deep, then I would have a better idea of both teams.
Yeah.
It's going to be harder to judge Iowa State this year because I think the Big 12 is a weaker conference than it's been, based on the fact that you lose Texas, you lose Oklahoma, and that's two big dogs that you don't have to face anymore.
Right.
So your record could be a little more skewed. Granted, Iowa could, people could say the same about Iowa. Well, you lose out on Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, your record's skewed too. Yeah, I mean, but you still have to play the games on your schedule, I guess. And I just think that the Big Ten is a stronger conference because of the defense than the Big 12 is. I mean, I thought TCU struggled against Stanford, and that's not a very good Stanford team.
No.
So I'm not sold on the strength of the Big 12. Kansas State's going to be the pride of the Big 12, I have a feeling.
Or Utah.
Arizona, maybe. In Utah. Iowa State will be up there in the top 4 or 5 anyway, just because somebody has to be, and the rest of the conference isn't that great.
Here's a stat for you. I'm not sure you know this or not, but with 1 game remaining, USC, how many Big Ten teams lost this weekend?
won. Minnesota.
USC might lose tonight to LSU, but Minnesota. Yeah. The Billy Mays lost the other day. So the car salesman, PJ Fleck, lost the game. I actually predicted them to win that game, but they missed a field goal.
I had him losing it, so I was happy to see him lose.
Yeah, well,
and that's one thing that they got a distinction of. They were the first team to be at the very, very bottom of the league in an 18 team conference.
Well, they may be joined by USC if they don't win tonight too, but
they were the first.
They were the first.
Yeah. So, well, let's move on to our question of the week.
Do you have a bold prediction for this game coming up?
Bold prediction.
My bold prediction is whoever turns the ball over the least wins the game. And penalties.
It's not really that bold.
No, it's not. And I'm not really into bold predictions. I mean, if you want a bold prediction, I say Iowa and Iowa State punt the ball 14 times combined. There.
Okay. I'm going to say my bold prediction is Iowa wins comfortably.
Oh.
They don't.
Okay.
They're not even really. It's not in doubt. I hope I'm right.
I hope you are right.
Okay, so question of the week next week. I'll go ahead and let you ask it because I know you wrote it down.
I did. Okay, this is the question of the week. When was the last time that Iowa gained at least 500 yards on offense, total offense? Well, give me the year and give me the game.
And if you really want to, give the yardage total.
Yeah, if you want to give me the yardage total, I got that too.
Yeah, I mean, try to do it without Googling, but
yeah, I'm not sure anybody's going to know that unless they're just a weird freaky type person that does that stuff all day.
There are those.
Last time Iowa ran for, had 500 plus yards of total offense in a game. When was the last time?
Okay. That's a good question.
It is a good question because we almost got 500 yesterday.
Yeah, 8 yards short.
Yeah.
Hey, the way I look at it is Iowa's averaging 40 points a game and almost 500 yards of offense. So
yeah, where's the doubters now, right?
Yeah. Although it did aggravate me to hear the boos in the early. I'm like, we knew they were going to struggle early.
Yeah, exactly. I rewatched that game yesterday. I watched it this morning. And I got to tell you, I wasn't as upset. Of course, I knew the score and the final and all that stuff ahead of time, but watching it the second time, I really wasn't as disappointed in the way they played on offense the first half as I was the day before. And maybe I had tempered my expectations today because I knew what. But if you're objectively watching this game a second time and you look at the way they played offense, they missed on some passes on third down, had to punt. That's normal. But it really didn't do too bad. I thought they played fairly well. They just had some little things that kept them from just moving forward with
costly
drives. Penalties, little things. If you keep that and get that corrected, I mean, they would have scored probably 20 points 50. Plus. We talked about this. And I think some of that would have been, I think the offense would have had, there wouldn't have been people booing. No. I think they just would have. And it took a while for them to click. And once they clicked, they looked really, really sharp. But I didn't think they looked terrible. I didn't see it that way yesterday when I was watching the game live. I was very disappointed with the offensive line early on. I thought they would open holes. I thought they would allow for a lot more running than they did. Watching it today,
you look back and saw the fact that they were going up against an 8 and a 9 man front.
I saw it yesterday too, but I felt like this is an inferior opponent. We should be able to run on them with a upper class, even though Kamari Moulton started and he's a redshirt freshman, but we had an upper class offensive line and we had some very good experienced players that were playing running back. Now, I do want to make one thing completely clear to people is that, I listened to WHO sound off just for as long as I could stomach it for about 5 minutes last night. And they were talking, somebody gets on there and says, why wasn't Caleb Johnson playing the whole? He got suspended for half of a game.
And so
I don't know
Jazz
why.
Patterson.
And so did Jazzy and Patterson. I don't know why. Don't ask why. I have no idea. But they were like, oh, I don't know why he didn't play. That's kind of stupid. Why wouldn't he run off like crazy in the second half? Well, if you'd have done 15 seconds of research, you'd have saw that, yes, he was suspended for half the game.
And yes, he ran like crazy in the second half against the tired defense with fresh legs.
Yeah.
That makes a difference too.
Yeah.
But, to your point, or even to my point, which is, I don't care how good your offensive line is. You can have the best players on the offensive line. If you've got 5 trying to block 8, it's not going to work. It's just because they didn't respect your passing offense. Once the passing offense opened up and they realized, oh, we can't really put 8 and 9 guys in the box. We got to respect this now. The running lanes opened. You saw that happen.
Well, yes, I agree with you 100%. But remember what we would do last year. We would just continue to pound and pound and pound and hit our head against the wall and not make adjustments. This year, and maybe that was because we had Deacon Hill at quarterback and we couldn't trust him to throw the ball 5 feet. But this year, we don't have that issue. So, if you're going to be constantly running and the other team's going to run an 8-man front at you, do something different.
Yep.
Play something completely different. Play action. Do a reverse.
Bootlegs.
Do something to change their scheme and strategy.
Yep. Make them respect something different.
Yeah.
Make them keep their eyes honest.
Right.
You can't just, and I think I even said it to you in text. I said, a little play action here would be perfect.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that last week too, that, we talked about 8-man front and I said, well, maybe we need to run play action to them and get them out of that. And then, you said that. So, I don't know. I just praying for a win on Saturday. I don't know that I can stand to live in this state for a year, knowing it's just too hard at my older age to live through that.
Just having to listen to the blowhards of how great Iowa State is because they won one game.
Yeah, and then
that could be the only game they'd win all year, and they would be happy with it.
Yeah, and then looking at maybe a potential billboard saying it's the Cyclone State.
Yeah,
I don't want to see
It'll
that.
never be the Cyclone State.
No, not at all. I don't care. You could win the national title, and you're still not going to be the Hawkeyes, or not going to be the Cyclone State.
You're of the 66 Division I F Power 4-5 conference teams. Out of the 66, you're number 64.
Yeah.
The only teams that are below you are Rutgers and Vanderbilt.
Could be.
Maybe.
And Vanderbilt had a nice win yesterday.
Yeah. So, you don't have a whole lot of room to talk.
No.
You should just kind of sit back in the corner and when you win, keep your mouth shut and win gracefully.
I'll just be glad when this week is over. That's all I'm saying. You alluded to it earlier. That this is the week we just, as Iowa fans, you're supposed to win this, and when you do, it's like, okay, nothing. And then if you lose it, then Iowa State just constantly smacking you in the head with it that they won.
We win, we move on. Iowa State wins. What's the reward for Iowa? They live it the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And
once we win the game, I was like, okay, move on. Next game, Troy, let's move on. Yep. I don't care. Iowa State's in a rearview mirror, and I hate this week, and I'm glad it's over. Yep. And I won't talk about it again.
I agree.
So anyway, I don't know how many people are gonna be upset with some of the stuff we said today, but it's our opinion. You can put your opinion down in the comments. Yeah. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, and put your comments in, and we'll maybe address them. Yeah, we might have a guest on at some point coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Who knows?
And make sure to check us out on Facebook and Twitter and TikTok. You might see us pop up there for a short little promo clip on TikTok. I've been putting a few of those out. And we'll have the question of the week out on Facebook as well. So feel free to interact with us there. We'd love to have your interaction on YouTube as well. I probably check that more than I do Facebook anymore. And I don't even know Spotify, Apple Podcasts, how many people still listen. I think we have a few regular listeners on Spotify still, but I think most people have switched over to YouTube.
Yeah.
So, we'll list. We'll be happy to have you either place.
Yep. Absolutely.
But let's wrap up on that, and let's get through Hate Week and touch base again on the weekend, and hopefully talking about a big Hawkeye victory on Sunday.
Let's move to 2-0.
Yep. One game at a time.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.